Reina. What's wrong? Reina, are you feeling sick?
Our daughter, who was born just a few months ago, has been very active and has always been moving around restlessly when she was awake, and I couldn't take my eyes off her. However, she seems different today. She's not sleeping, but she has a blank look in her eyes, and she is not lively. Her breathing also seems shallow somehow.
Oh, she's quiet today. How unusual. It would be nice if she were this quiet every day.
My mother-in-law made sarcastic remarks as usual. My mother-in-law, who doesn't like our daughter, who cries a lot at night, not only refuses to help with taking care of our daughter despite living with us, but also showers me with these kinds of sarcastic remarks every day. Today, when I saw my mother-in-law smiling wryly with such words, I felt an indescribable sense of unease and hurriedly took her to the hospital. My name is Alma, and I'm 28 years old. I work as a receptionist at an automotive retail store. I met my husband, Riker, 3 years ago through a mutual acquaintance. We hit it off from the first day we met and started dating right away. I occasionally fought with Riker, who gets irritable when he drinks, but things went smoothly. He proposed me after dating for a year, and we got married. Everything was going well, but one issue arose. When we went to greet Riker's parents before getting married, despite it being our first meeting, my mother-in-law displayed an arrogant attitude and remained sour throughout.
My son could have found a better person. Why her?
I heard her say these words. Since then, I have been feeling uncomfortable with her, and I was hoping that we wouldn't have to live with her after we get married. However, Riker asked me if we could live with her, because he couldn't leave her alone since his father had passed away a few years ago. Reluctantly, I accepted to live with my mother-in-law, but I regretted so badly not having firmly refused at that time.
Alma, is dinner not ready yet? You're doing the laundry right now? You are really slow at everything you do.
My mother-in-law loved finding fault in others, and whenever there was even a slight imperfection, she would immediately make sarcastic remarks. Though she didn't have a job, she made me do all the housework, and she was just net surfing in her room all day, or taking naps. Even when my husband saw that, he would just say,
Mom gets tired easily due to her age. Let her take it easy.
And he always sided with his mother. While carrying the stress from a living environment like that, I got pregnant. I gave birth to a baby girl soon after, and we named her Reina. She was a long-awaited baby for our family. I was excited to imagine the future of this child growing up, but at the same time, the presence of my mother-in-law, who said,
You're still in the hospital? Hurry back home and do the housework.
To me while I was still in the hospital after giving birth, reminded me of the usual gloomy days. As for our newborn daughter, she was a very active and energetic child who was drinking milk so well. Though we were relieved that she was born healthy, there was something that troubled us at the same time. It was her severe nighttime crying that goes on day after day, night after night. No matter how much we rocked her, or walked her around the house holding her, she wouldn't stop crying. During the day I was busy with housework and taking care of her, and at night my daughter cried and I was constantly sleep deprived. Even my husband, who I hoped would help with taking care of her, wasn't pleased with her crying.
Why does she cry so much at night? Maybe you're not taking proper care of her during the day. I have an important business meeting tomorrow, so make her stop crying quickly.
He had even said things like that. Parenting is supposed to be a cooperative effort between husband and wife. Certainly, Riker is the one who works and earns money. However, it's tough to take care of our daughter, and also manage household chores at the same time while enduring the bullying from my mother-in-law. In addition to Riker's uncooperative attitude towards parenting, the bigger issue was my mother-in-law. When our daughter starts crying, my mother-in-law deliberately comes to our bedroom and bangs on the door.
Is she crying again today? She's so noisy every single night, I can't sleep. Hurry up and put her to sleep. You're completely unfit as a mother if you can't even take care of your own daughter.
My mother-in-law says such heartless words without hesitation. Amidst her shouting and door banging, as expected, our daughter cries even more, and hearing such exchanges, my husband quickly becomes irritated. Even a little help with soothing our daughter would be nice. Instead, he pulls the covers over himself, curling up as if it's none of his concern. My mother-in-law has never once showed affection to our daughter even when our daughter's calm. She should have given birth to a boy. I didn't want a girl. She'd say such things directly to my face. I couldn't understand how she could say I didn't want it. To a baby who was born. I deeply regretted having accepted living with my mother-in-law. After I gave birth, my husband took a 2-week paternity leave to help me with taking care of our baby, but in reality, he fed her and put her to sleep only for a few days. He often indulged in his hobbies and slept during the day, as if it were a short vacation. He wasn't cooperative in parenting to say the least. Despite these concerns, our new daily life began. Our daughter started crying at night shortly after my husband returned to work. He did initially endure our daughter's nighttime crying, but after a week of it, he started blaming me as if it were all my fault.
Why is she crying so much? Maybe it's because you didn't discipline her properly.
Riker must think that I have such an easy life since I stay home all day, but I actually have to take care of my daughter, manage all the housework for our family, and also deal with my mother-in-law who bullies me for everything that I do, so I'm really tired. Amidst all this, the nightly crying took a toll on me physically and mentally. One day, my mother-in-law showed me a medicine and said,
I can't sleep at all, so I went to the hospital to get some meds. I really don't want to take stuff like this. You should at least pay for my medical bill.
She deliberately showed me the bag containing the prescribed medication. And then, she took the medication with a sigh. I was thinking to myself that she didn't need to come so close to show me and take it, and moreover, the reason why she couldn't sleep was that she was sleeping both during the day and at night. And maybe she was just sleeping too much. However, if I say something like that, I don't know what kind of verbal abuse will come back, and it's better to just let her sleep peacefully like this, so I suppressed the urge to retort and held back. While the daughter-in-law bullying was going on, it was when my husband was preparing for an important business meeting the next day. I decided to make an effort to make our daughter sleep well at night, so that he could get a good night's sleep and be prepared for the meeting the next day. I shortened her daytime naps so that she gets very sleepy at night, and I tired her out by playing more than usual. That day, my husband came home early, so I decided to make both my husband and daughter go to bed at the same time. It seemed that my husband had already prepared for his business meeting the day before, and by 10 p.m., he was lying down in bed. Our daughter seemed sleepy, as my plan had worked, and sure enough, when I gently placed her in the crib, she fell asleep with soft breathing sound. As soon as I felt relieved, thinking that both Riker and Reina would sleep well tonight, I could hear my mother-in-law yelling, with a loud banging on our bedroom door.
Alma, the kitchen is a mess. Do you really plan to sleep without doing the dishes?
Normally, I clean the kitchen right after dinner, but making our daughter and husband go to bed was my top priority that day, so I was going to do the dishes later.
I can't believe you can't even finish simple chores like that. You're so slow at everything you do. If you leave things like this, bugs will come swarming. It's so disgusting.
She ought to have helped with the dishes on a day like this, but she pushes everything onto me. Expecting anything from this mother-in-law was a mistake, and not informing her beforehand that I would do the dishes later was also a mistake. I despaired once again that I had to report that much detail. With the relentless yelling and door banging, predictably, our daughter woke up and started crying. She must have been quite startled. She was crying more intensely than usual. And she didn't look like she would stop crying anytime soon. All the efforts I made during the day to put her to sleep were in vain, and I felt a mix of frustration and anger, and that almost made me cry. My mother-in-law, who created the cause for my daughter to start crying, seemed unaware that she was the cause.
Today again? How can she cry every single night? Hurry up and make her quiet.
She went back to her own room while shouting, and slammed the door. I didn't have the confidence to live with my mother-in-law under such circumstances for decades to come. Even if my daughter stops crying at night, she might find something else to criticize and continue with her bullying. I was feeling gloomy while imagining such scenarios, but first, I needed to do something about our crying daughter. Amidst all this, my husband said,
What's going on? I have an important business meeting tomorrow. If Reina doesn't stop crying soon, go to the other room and make her stop crying.
Instead of showing any intentions to comfort our daughter with me, he told me to leave the room and pointed at the living room. Despite the sense of despair overwhelming me, I finally mustered the strength to get up and headed to the living room. Come to think of it, it's been a while since she had milk last time, so I decided to feed her and put her back to sleep. In the dimly lit living room, while making milk for our crying daughter alone, various unsettling emotions welled up within me. Can I really continue living with this mother-in-law and husband? But if I don't stay strong, no one will protect my precious Reina. With that in mind, I brought the milk, which had returned to the proper temperature, to Reina's mouth. Then, my daughter eagerly began to drink it, almost lunging at the bottle. Seeing my daughter drinking milk happily, I felt even more determined to give my all for her sake. The next day, my husband said I'm sorry about last night, and he prepared the bottle for Reina, which is very unusual. It was a rare occurrence, but I accepted it thankfully and decided to warm it up again and give it to Reina later. Before that, I had to finish the dishes I had left untouched yesterday, before my mother-in-law woke up. If she found out they were left overnight, who knows what kind of yelling would follow. While I was doing the dishes, my husband left, and just as I finished, my mother-in-law woke up. After pestering me for breakfast, she lay down on the couch and watched the morning news while talking to herself. Glancing sideways at her, I warmed up the milk for our daughter, who seemed to be in a good mood, and gently placed her, who looked satisfied, back in her crib. After that, as I was cleaning the room, I noticed that my daughter was moving less and less. More than anything, my daughter, who is very active, has never been this quiet without raising her voice. Her eyes are open, so she's awake, but they seem unfocused. I knew that something was wrong. I quickly picked her up. She had her mouth slightly open, had rapid shallow breathing. And her arms and legs were sloppy.
Reina. What's wrong, Reina? Are you feeling sick?
She had never looked like this before. And as I became anxious and looked around, I caught sight of my mother-in-law with a smirk beside me.
Oh, she's so quiet today. Just let her be, it's fine. Let her sleep peacefully.
She chuckled and went back to her room cheerfully. This made me even more anxious. Though I wasn't dressed to go outside, I quickly put on a coat and rushed to the nearest pediatric clinic. As soon as I showed my daughter's condition to the reception nurse, she called a doctor urgently, and I was called into the examination room ahead of those who had been waiting. There, with a serious expression, the doctor told me shocking news, something I had never imagined. My blood ran cold. My daughter's life was in danger.
For now, your daughter's condition has stabilized. She's going to be fine.
The head of the hospital, who was attending to us, reassured me. However, his serious demeanor didn't change. Taking a deep breath, he looked directly into my eyes, and slowly said,
When we examined Reina's body, we detected traces of a drug that seemed to have been administered artificially. Mrs. Nickel, do you know anything about it?
In that moment, I noticed that the doctor in front of me was quietly angry. His tone was calm, yet he was staring at me without blinking. My mind went completely blank. I realized that I've never given her any medication since she was born. When I asked the doctor what kind of drug was found, I trembled with fear. The medication is said to be a sleeping pill prescribed for people with insomnia. Only one person in the family uses that medication.
My mother-in-law has that medication.
At the doctor's urging, I called my mother-in-law. She was watching TV at home and reluctant to come to the hospital. But once she talked to the doctor, she seemed to have accepted it quite easily. My mother-in-law arrived at the hospital with a rather displeased expression, but she somehow looked confident at the same time. The interview began in the hospital exam room with my mother-in-law, me, and the doctor.
We found traces of sleeping pills in Reina's body. I understand you have been prescribed sleeping pills by your family doctor, so do you know anything about this? Why are you suspecting me?
She glared at me with a look that said, "You told him something uncalled for." Certainly, I haven't seen my mother-in-law give anything to my daughter or approach her, and I was the last one to give milk to my daughter. My husband prepared it, but as I thought back, I realized something abruptly. No way. I felt that my blood run cold and I became pale. However, it was odd to think that the person who was prescribed the medication was not involved. The doctor seemed to think the same. My mother-in-law's know-it-all attitude made me distrust her even more.
Did you really suffer from insomnia? You seem perfectly healthy, and I'm wondering if you intentionally got a prescription for sleeping pills to give it to Reina?
My mother-in-law was obviously upset when she was suddenly told that. Her eyes were wandering around, her gaze darting back and forth across the empty space with no object in sight.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's clear she's agitated.
This can't go on like this. Let's call your husband and the police as well.
I called my husband.
Something terrible has happened to Reina. We're at the hospital, and I need you to come here now. Right now? I have an important business meeting coming up. It's not the time for that. Plus, the police is coming later. If you are not coming to the hospital yourself, the police will come to your company to meet you. Oh no.
After that, I didn't hear another word from him. There were 4 people in the hospital's examination room, including my husband. The doctor's sharp gaze was fixed on my husband and mother-in-law.
Both of you conspired to give Reina the medication, didn't you?
My husband and mother-in-law, facing this accusation, were frozen like frogs caught in the gaze of a snake.
I'm the one who put the medicine in. Wait a moment, Riker.
My mother-in-law tried desperately to stop him, but the truth my husband told us was exactly as the doctor and I had imagined it. Hearing those words quietly, the doctor started talking in a quiet voice.
Do you realize what you've done? She could have stopped breathing, you know.
I was momentarily taken aback by the loudness of his voice. The doctor's hands were trembling with anger.
Children cry. It is a normal thing, isn't it? Just because she cries so much at night, how can you put medicine in her milk? You didn't even try to soothe her. You two almost took Reina's life for the sake of your own selfishness. Thanks to Alma rushing her to the hospital, she was saved. Do you realize what you've done?
The doctor's shouting continued until the police arrived at the hospital. After that, my husband and mother-in-law were taken in for questioning and they confessed the truth, and they were held in custody on suspicion of causing harm. Reina, on the other hand, steadily recovered regained energy, and became healthy again, and I was so relieved. After that, I took legal action against my mother-in-law and husband. While it also served as a divorce lawsuit against Riker, the outcome of the trial was, needless to say, my victory. Both of them were fined, and I was to receive certain funds on an ongoing basis, including child support. The fact that Riker had stood up an important business meeting and was taken away by the police soon became known throughout the company, and he was transferred to a branch office on a remote island far away from the head office as disciplinary action. Having lost most of his assets and his position in the company, Riker now lives a lonely life on the inconvenient island. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, is separated from her son, Riker, and lives alone at her own house. She only had a few friends to begin with, but she lost all her friends, because the rumor that she had put medicine in her grandchild's milk quickly spread through the neighborhood, and now she is living a lonely life. Moreover, since she pays compensation from her small pension, She doesn't have enough money for living expenses, so she decided to take up a part-time job. Even after losing her husband a few years ago, she has been living off his inheritance. And she has been a full-time housewife. Job opportunities were limited for a woman in her 60s without work experience or special qualifications. She finally managed to secure a cleaning job with great difficulty, but she was disliked by her colleagues and became isolated due to her naturally sharp tongue and inflexible attitude. My life, on the other hand, has improved dramatically, because I no longer have to deal with the stress that comes from my mother-in-law, and I am living comfortably every day. Furthermore, with my mother-in-law and husband gone, my daughter's night crying has calmed down, and she sleeps soundly at night. Perhaps the presence of my mother-in-law and husband was a source of stress for my daughter as well. Thanks to that, I can now also sleep well at night. The doctor who helped my daughter at that time is still taking care of us, and he concerns about her health and enjoys to see her grow up along with me. I'm sure that I'm living without a husband without any worries, because I'm blessed with the surroundings. I promised myself that I would continue to take good care of my precious daughter, with the help of those around me.